Hello, our dear viewers, and welcome to this special edition of our program, Africa Today. In today's edition, we are going to talk about a very important event, which is the G20 summit taking place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrived in Rio de Janeiro and held talks with the Brazilian President Lula da Silva. The President and President da Silva signed a partnership communique for strategic partnership between Egypt and Brazil, and that was on the sidelines of the G20 summit, which will start its activities on Monday and on Tuesday. And on the sideline of the summit also, presidential spokesman said that President Sisi was keen on thanking President da Silva for inviting Egypt to participate in the G20 summit for this year, which reflected Brazil's high appreciation to Egypt's pivotal role in both the Middle East and Africa. President Sisi also praised the organization of the summit and the keenness of the Brazilian side on including the priorities of the developing countries on the agenda. Topping of the list is launching the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty in light of the growing geopolitical, economic and social challenges across the world. And indeed, our dear viewers, a very important summit will take place today and tomorrow in the city of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. To shed more light on the issue, we are very much delighted to be joined over the phone by Dr. Mohamed our political analyst. Dr. Aizabi, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, sir, and all the viewers.
Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. Sir, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrived in Rio de Janeiro to attend the activities of the G20 summit upon the invitation of the Brazilian President Lula da Silva. And before starting about this very important visit by President Sisi, how do we see here the agreement that was signed between Egypt and Brazil for the strategic partnership between both countries?
Well, this agreement reflects the good relations between Egypt and Brazil in these days, and because two countries are involved in BRICS community, and it gives a high opportunities to Egypt and Brazil to make a great relation, economic relations, and many field of cooperations between Egypt and Brazil.
Indeed. Sir, back to the G20 summit, which is including, of course, the world leaders here. The meetings will be taking place today and tomorrow in Rio de Janeiro, with the participation indeed of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The significance of Egypt's participation in the summit?
Well, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi presence at the G20 Leaders Summit is significant for Egypt, offering a critical opportunities to engage on pressing global issues. Egypt's participation emphasizes its commitment to international cooperation, especially with Brazil, a strategic partner with the BRICS group and key player in Latin America. El-Sisi involvement highlights Egypt's aspiration to expand its influence in multilateral setting, voicing the perspective of developing countries on global challenges like climate action, poverty alleviation, and sustainable development. Egypt's invitation to the summit aligns with its ambitions to bolster its diplomatic and economic reach, especially aimed at dynamic geopolitical landscape.
Yeah. Dr. Aizabi?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Sir, under the slogan, Building a Just World and Sustainable Planet, the summit of the G20 is discussing several topics of importance to the developing nations, particularly social inclusion, combating poverty and hunger, reforming the global governance institutions, as well as energy transition within sustainable developments. How do you see these topics which are also topping the agenda of the talks in the G20 summit today and tomorrow?
Well, the slogan, building a just world and sustainable planet, speaks to assured commitment to address core issues affecting development countries, social inclusion, the fight against poverty and hunger, and the drive to reform global governance institutions, highlight the urgency for a world order that reflects a balance between developed and the developing nations. These themes resonate strongly with the current priorities of developing nations, especially as they seek equitable access to resource and influence and decision-making process. The inclusion of energy transition within the framework of sustainable development further underscore the global push for environmental responsibility alongside economic progress.
Sir, also the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty will also be officially launched during the summit. Can you shed more light about that?
Well, the launch of Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty signal an intensified international commitment to combating these pressing issues. This initiative is poised to mobilize global resources, knowledge sharing, and partnership targeting the root cause of poverty and food insecurity. It represents a collective effort to address inequalities and aim to bolster resilience, particularly in regions vulnerable to climate change and economic instability. For Egypt and other development nations, such an alliance could provide additional avenue for addressing food security challenges while fostering socio-economic stability.
Indeed, Dr. Mohamed Al-Aizavi, our political analyst, thank you so much, sir, for being our guest and for your precious input. Indeed, Assistant Foreign Minister for African Organization and Communities at the Foreign Ministry, as Ambassador Ashraf Swilem, shed light on the giant promising opportunities the African continent provides, being a broad field for investment and trade and a giant market of 1.4 billion people, most of them young population.
Assistant Foreign Minister for African Organizations and Communities at the Foreign Ministry, Ambassador Ashraf Swilem, shed light on giant promising opportunities the African continent provides, being a broad field for investment and trade and a giant market of 1.4 billion people, most of them are young people. During his participation on the head of an Egyptian delegation taking part in the ministerial meeting of the Russian-African Partnership held in Sochi, the Egyptian diplomat, in the speech he delivered on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration and Egyptian expats, Badr Abdelati, pointed out to Egypt's pride in the African-Russian Partnership that was launched during the Egyptian presidency of the African Union AU in 2019, as its first summit was held in Sochi under the co-chairmanship of Presidents Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Russian President Vladimir Putin in the same year. He highlighted the importance the African Continental Free Trade Agreement signed during the Egyptian presidency of the AU and the momentum leap it represented down the road towards efforts meant to achieve regional integration. The Egyptian diplomat tackled the importance Africa attached to its external partnerships, especially with Russia, to realize peace and security for the continent and the world, and to strengthen joint efforts to achieve sustainable continental development and the Africa Agenda 2063. Swalem referred to the great challenges facing the continent and the world, especially in light of successive crises in recent years, including conflicts and the spread of terrorism, along with cross-border challenges, including epidemics and illegal immigration, as well as the worsening debt crisis and the decline in development aid.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration and Egyptian Expatriates Affairs Badr Abdel-Ati asserted on Thursday that joint relations with South Africa were upgraded to the level of strategic partnership.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration and Egyptian Expats Badr Abdel-Ati asserted that joint relations with South Africa were upgraded to the level of strategic partnership. He referred to the big momentum in bilateral ties upon the political directives of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. Abdel-Ati said that both leaders agreed on intensifying efforts to achieve the interests and materialize the aspirations of the African continent. He added that the continuation of ties binding Egypt and South Africa and the exchange of visits at the ministerial level reflect the utmost keenness of the two countries on boosting brotherly bonds. Addressing a joint press conference with South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation Ronald Lamola, Abdel-Ati welcomed the South African official and his accompanying delegation in his second homeland, Egypt. He said the first round of political consultations between Egypt and South Africa convenes 6 months after the convocation of the 10th round of the Joint Cooperation Committee that was held at the ministerial level in Pretoria, the capital of South Africa. Abdel-Ati said there were directives to activate mechanisms of joint cooperation and coordination to upgrade relations between Egypt and South Africa to strategic partnership.
Well, with that, our dear viewers, we come to the end of this edition of Africa Today. I'm Maïsi Rabia signing off. Many thanks for watching.